I was 13 when my concept of home as my safe haven was shattered forever. It was a typical Tuesday evening, my parents working late again, leaving me in our quiet suburban house. I used to relish these evenings, the freedom of having the house to myself, but that night changed everything. I remember it was unusually quiet outside. The kind of quiet that makes every little noise seem loud. I was watching TV when I first heard it, faint scratching sounds, like branches against the window. I muted the TV, listening. The sound was odd, inconsistent. I told myself it was just the wind. But the wind doesn't make noises like footsteps on dry leaves. The faint scraping became a thump. Once, then again. Someone was at the back of the house. I froze, every horror movie I'd ever seen flashing through my mind. My heart pounded as I got up and locked every door, every window. But the quiet returned, as if whatever was making the noise knew I was listening. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined all of it. Then, the shattering of glass shattered my denial. It came from the kitchen. This was no imaginary monster, the danger was real. My phone was upstairs, and calling the police seemed like my only lifeline. But moving towards the stairs meant moving closer to the kitchen. I hesitated, then sprinted upstairs, taking the steps two at a time, barely breathing, listening for more sounds. Reaching my phone, I dialed 911, whispering about the intruders, begging them to hurry. The dispatcher's calm voice was a stark contrast to my trembling terror. As I hung up, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps inside my house. Desperate, I darted into the nearest hiding spot I could think of, the laundry room. It was a small space, but it had a lock. I turned it slowly, holding my breath. I thought the washing machine would cover me, but that's when I saw it. My baseball bat was also in the room. Clutching it, I felt a surge of childish bravery. Maybe I could defend myself. The footsteps grew louder, more deliberate. Then they stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. My heart thumped so loud I feared it would give me away. The door handle jiggled softly. Panic surged as the door pushed open. Two men, large and covered in dark clothes, masks hiding their faces. They saw me. Their eyes, the only part of them visible, widened in surprise. For a moment, we all froze. "What do we do with him?" one growled. The other shrugged. "Just grab him. Make sure he can't identify us." They advanced, and I swung the bat wildly, more to keep them back than to hit them. They hesitated, which gave me a split second to think. I could run, I could scream, but where would I go? They blocked the only exit. My mind raced. The police. I needed to stall. "I don't know anything." "I didn't see your faces," I stammered. It was a lie, and a poor one at that. They glanced at each other, unsure. The sirens wailed in the distance, a sound I've never been more grateful for. It was enough to distract them. I took my chance. Throwing the bat, I bolted past them, nearly tripping in my haste. They recovered quickly, chasing me through my own home, a place that now felt foreign and menacing. I was almost at the front door when I heard the police outside. I screamed for help, managing to unlock and throw open the door just as the officers were approaching. The intruders, realizing their time was up, retreated the way they had come. I collapsed on the front lawn, the grass cold and wet under my hands, the flashing lights blurring through my tears of relief. Later, as the police took their report, the severity of what could have happened sank in. They caught one of the men, thanks to the evidence they left behind in their haste. My parents arrived, faces stricken with worry and guilt. That night, we locked doors we never bothered to lock before. We installed a security system the following week. As an adult now, I look back at that night often. It taught me about vulnerability, about the real monsters in the world, and how quickly life can spiral into chaos from the mundane. I learned that sometimes, bravery isn't about not being afraid, but about what you do when fear is all you have. And every time I lock my door at night, I remember the sound of that lock clicking in the laundry room, a small act that might have saved my life. I never thought it would happen to me. You hear about break-ins in the news, but you never think you'll be the one dialing 911, heart racing, as a stranger invades your home. My neighborhood was always quiet, almost sleepy. That was until a string of burglaries turned violent, setting all of us on edge. It was a Thursday night, just past 11, when I first heard the shuffling noise from my backyard. At first, I thought it was a raccoon or some critter, but the persistence of the noise got me thinking otherwise. The unsettling part wasn't just the noise, but how it gradually grew louder and closer. Someone was out there, trying to get in. With every creak and crackle from the backyard, my pulse quickened. I turned off all the indoor lights to avoid being seen and crept to the kitchen window, trying to spot anything through the darkness. The dim backyard light barely illuminated the outlines of my small garden, and then I saw a shadow darting past the fence. It disappeared before I could get a good look. Figuring I needed to secure the house, I went to check the locks on the doors. As I approached the front door, the doorbell rang. It was nearly midnight. Who could it be? I peered through the peephole and saw a figure in a hoodie, its face hidden in the shadows. Something felt wrong. I didn't open the door. Instead, I watched from the living room window as the figure walked off my porch, only to circle around to the side of the house, heading toward the backyard again. Hearing the faint sound of glass breaking from the spare room made my stomach drop. I tiptoed over, only to find the window smashed and a dark figure climbing inside. Panic set in, but I knew I couldn't just stand there. I grabbed a baseball bat from the closet and prepared myself. This wasn't just a burglar, it was someone who might be dangerous. Silently, I moved through the house, making my way to my bedroom to grab my phone. I should have had it on me, but today, of all days, I'd left it charging on the nightstand. As I reached the door, my heart sank. The intruder was there, rifling through my drawers. Our eyes met, and in that split second, he pulled out a knife and stepped towards me. My grip on the bat tightened. I swung the bat in defense, managing to knock the knife from his hand after a tense struggle. We crashed into the furniture, pictures falling off the walls, the room a chaos of noise and fear. He was strong, but the adrenaline gave me an edge. As we grappled, I felt the knife slice through my arm, a sharp pain that made me gasp. But I couldn't let up, not when my life was on the line. Using all my might, I pushed him back and made a dash for the bathroom, slamming the door shut and locking it. I was bleeding, scared out of my mind, but I had to call for help. I fumbled with my phone, finally dialing 911 as I pressed a towel to my arm. The operator's voice was a lifeline as I whispered my address, pleading for them to hurry. The intruder wasn't giving up. He started banging on the bathroom door, his hits thunderous against the wood. I shouted out the window for anyone who could hear, "Help! Call the police!" It seemed like an eternity, but then the sound of sirens filled the air, and the banging stopped. The police found him trying to flee through the back, and thankfully, they caught him before he could disappear into the night. After the police took him away, I sat on the ambulance bench, getting my arm bandaged. The officer told me the man was wanted for several other home invasions. Knowing he wouldn't be coming back was a relief, but the fear wasn't easy to shake off. I spent the next day upgrading my home security, installing better locks, and a new alarm system. I even joined the neighborhood watch. Nothing like this would catch me off guard again. Looking back, I realize how lucky I was to come out of it relatively unscathed. It's made me more vigilant, more aware of every little noise. And every night, before I head to bed, I double-check all the locks and take a long look out into the dark, just to be sure. No one thinks it'll happen to them, until it does. And when it does, you find out just what you're capable of in the face of danger. I never thought a simple text could spell the beginning of the worst night of my life. It was just a check-in from Harry, my best friend, asking how I was holding up with all the break-in news around our neighborhood. I told him I was fine, just a bit on edge but nothing too serious. I mean, it's a safe place usually, and Harry's always been the one to remind me to lock my doors at night, a good guy, always looking out for me since I moved here. The evening was quiet, almost too quiet, with just the low hum of the TV in the background while I tried to distract myself with some mindless show. That's when the strange noises started. It was subtle at first, like the sound of leaves brushing against the house or the distant shut of a car door. But then, I noticed shadows flitting past the living room window once, twice, as if something, or someone, was circling the house. Trying to calm my nerves, I told myself it was probably just some kids from the neighborhood playing around. But the unease coiled tight in my stomach didn't ease up. So, I got up to double-check the locks on all the doors and windows. That's when I saw it, the front window wasn't just unlocked, it was slightly open. I was sure I had locked it earlier that evening. My heart started to race as I shut and locked the window. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I tried to convince myself to relax, that it was nothing, just the wind probably pushed it open. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I decided to call it a night, hoping that sleep would take the edge off. I'd barely turned off the TV when I heard the front door creak open. Instinctively, I froze. Through the dim light, a tall figure stepped inside, clad in black, face hidden behind a mask. Panic gripped me like a vice. "Who are you? What do you want?" I managed to stammer out, but the intruder just motioned with his weapon for me to stay silent. The living room felt colder, or maybe it was just the terror chilling my bones as he demanded, "Money, valuables, now." His voice was distorted, maybe disguised. I nodded, leading him to where I kept some cash, all the while thinking about how I could get out of this. But there was no clear escape. The intruder was between me and the only exit. As he rifled through my drawers, his sleeve rode up, revealing a tattoo, a small, intricate clock. It looked familiar, hauntingly so, but my mind was too frantic to place it. I needed to act, so when he turned his back, I lunged for the vase on the table and smashed it towards him. We struggled, the mask coming loose in the process. And that's when my world came crashing down. The mask fell away, and there was Harry, staring back at me with cold, angry eyes. "Harry? Why?" I gasped, betrayal slicing through the fear. Harry sneered, a twisted version of the friend I thought I knew. "You think you're so perfect, moving here, making everyone like you more than they ever liked me." His voice was bitter, filled with a resentment I had never seen in him before. I was stunned, unable to reconcile this venomous stranger with the friend I knew. My mind raced as he continued, his words laced with jealousy and anger. "I wanted to scare you, make you feel as unsafe and unwanted as I did when you showed up." It was madness, hearing him pour out his insecurities, using them to justify terrorizing me. In that moment of his rant, I edged towards my phone on the couch. I dialed 911 quietly, speaking in hushed tones while Harry was lost in his tirade. The police arrived faster than I expected. They subdued Harry without much struggle as he was still reeling from his own outbursts. As they led him away, his eyes met mine, not with the anger from before, but a sad, resigned sort of defeat. I watched as my once best friend was taken away in handcuffs, the betrayal a sharp sting that I knew would linger. Sitting back in the now too quiet room, the adrenaline slowly ebbed from my veins, leaving a hollow emptiness. I thought about Harry's words, about the hidden fissures in friendships you think are rock solid. It was a lesson learned in the hardest way. Trust is delicate, and jealousy can corrupt even the best of us. I knew things would never be the same again, but at least I was safe, at least for now.